Alright, maybe this will actually work. I don't want to jinx it too much. But welcome in, first of all. Thanks for being here. Secondly, I just gave my intro and then my entire internet died. So I'm gonna chill for a minute. I'm gonna chill for a minute and see if the internet sticks around, since this is still like a third of what we should be getting or what we normally get. But this is enough to stream, but it is concerning when it drops down to like 12 and like 80. But maybe this will be fine. But since I assume I'll dump the video where I talked and then became a robot and then cut out, I will introduce myself again. My name is Andrew. Welcome on in. I'm one of two Andrews working at a game studio called Chroma Golem. We use AI to experiment with and find new mechanics or new ways that AI can be used in games that unlock kind of new ways to play that weren't possible before. So we're especially interested, obviously, in like making really realistic NPCs. So we've done a lot of work in personality generation, the same like conversation stuff that everyone's doing, but we've also layered a bunch of stuff on top of it for like quest generation, having NPCs have opinions of the player and each other, giving NPCs tools to be able to interact with the world in interesting ways. Basically amping up the like the simulation aspect of NPCs, where rather than a player starting a game and being the hero of a story, it could very well just be a person within this town of all these autonomous NPCs, and they are just tasked with being a farmer or being a chef or going and slaying monsters or going and talking to the NPCs, finding out what ails them and solving their problems, which I think is a really cool game loop. And the more realistic you can get the NPCs, the cooler that is, the more stuff you can unlock to do. Especially if you can like convince NPCs that they should or shouldn't do certain things. You can kind of dictate the town as a whole and do a lot of cool stuff. So that's kind of what we're experimenting with in this demo. We'll have a Steam demo soon. I think the internet seems to be cooperating, so I will get on into it, and I'll give a quick little overview of all the AI systems that we have in place right now. So you can kind of see that this is an open world RPG that is built on top of a bunch of overlapping AI systems that let you as a player have a lot more control in what you're doing in the game or how you play it. So the very first one that I'll show off is the item crafting system. So obviously crafting is nothing new in a lot of games. If you were to use a blade on a handle, you might get an axe, or use a bucket or combine a bucket and some berries or something, you might get a bucket of berries. Like, those are pretty boring examples, but we do have a lot of those hard-coded recipes in the game. However, the cool thing that we're experimenting with here is you can combine any items you want. So if there's not a recipe for your combination in the game, for example, you want to, let's say, you want to combine bark and coral. We don't have a recipe for that, but we let you combine them anyway. And under the hood, we're asking our AI engine for crafting, hey, what do you get when you combine bark and coral? We are generating an item. We're generating stats. We are generating an image for it. We got some weird armor here, so it's kind of fun. I didn't know what to expect there. But the cool thing is, once you start crafting things in the game, those recipes persist. So if we were to get more bark and combine it with coral again, you would get the same item every time. So if we were to take clay and coral, which we have more of, and do this crafting animation, we'll add in animations and stuff under the hood later. We now get living clay. So living clay itself can be a crafting material for other stuff, but we now can see in our codex, like if we ever want living clay for anything at all, we know you can always combine clay and coral, and that's what you'll get. You can also do a little bit of crafting from over here by just clicking. But if you were to take maybe living clay and a chisel, you can just kind of keep layering in new stuff to build. And very quickly this becomes a really, really dense crafting web that you're basically filling out all of the recipes and items in this game as you play based on what you're doing. So if you were to take a more like farming approach and you had a bunch of food, I'll go pick some lemons or something to show off, but the items that you are using are what is basically dictating the new items that are being created in the game. So if we take this very like crafting or mining approach where we have clay and chisels and stuff, we're going to get a lot of like golems' hearts and living clay and whatnot. But if we were to take some lemons and maybe combine them with I don't know, an apple, you could start to make a lot more foods. Or I'll get into workstations in a second, but I'm really excited to build out some of these like kitchen workstations. But this is just one layer of where we're starting with AI here. So if you were to combine lemon and an apple, you get a fruit salad. And if you eat it, it just restores 5 health. So super easy. Maybe a lemon and some amber. It's probably going to be like preserved lemon or something like that. But you can basically craft whatever you want if you can think through the components. Electrified resin. I guess you do get some electricity from lemons. So you get some weird stuff, some cool stuff, but there's kind of this important distinction of randomness here that is input randomness versus output randomness. And that is the very first time that you're doing it, you are getting a random output. But from then on, that randomness goes away. So you're kind of learning about the game, both literally as the player, but also this guy in the game doesn't know what things combine into. So every time you play, he's learning those recipes, and they're different every time you play, which is really cool. So that's kind of the crafting system. We've got a couple other ways to interact with that. But the driver of that crafting system is talking to NPCs. So every NPC in town has their own generated personalities, wants and dislikes, likes and dislikes. They also have a profession, relationship scores that are both with the player and with each other. They've got inventories, they've got lots of stuff. So using all of this stuff, we also ask an AI under the hood to say, all right, here's all the stuff you know about this person. What is a problem that they would be having? So if we look at Nia, the zoologist in town, she loves animals and nature, very enthusiastic, knowledgeable, and so on. But if you talk to her, she finds out that she has developed an allergic reaction to feathers. So she can't research birds. So birds are one of her favorite subjects to study. Can you concoct something that might allow me to continue my passion without the discomfort? So that's a really open-ended quest, obviously. But it's kind of realistic in the way that she's just telling you her problem. And it's up to you to decide how to solve it. And that's another interesting distinction that we're trying to make here. We don't want this to be a puzzle solving game where you're finding the solution. I've been thinking of it more as a problem solving game where you're finding a solution. So there's lots of different ways that you could approach this with. We also use an AI under the hood to suggest some routes you might take. So you get a couple of suggested responses here, which is suggest creating a potion to temporarily suppress allergies, or inquire about alternative methods to study birds without direct contact. So that might be like getting her gloves, or getting her a telescope, or getting her other stuff. Telescope, that's not quite right. Binoculars, something like that. And you can click on those. So maybe alternative methods. It'll generate dialogue for you. So you can just continue conversations really easily, but guide them the way you want to. But if you don't like those suggestions, you can also write whatever you want here. We're still working a little bit on the NPCs. I'm going to prune down the verbosity of them so they don't talk quite as much. And the other co-founder at our game studio is working on more of the brains that we can swap in for some cooler, like agentic stuff where they can interact with stuff in the world and query a little knowledge database to ask what they know, and kind of be a little bit more grounded in the world. But you can talk as long as you want with them. You can talk about whatever else you want, maybe. I'm sure she's happy to talk about nature and the animals in the world and all that jazz. But once you kind of understand their problem, it's up to you as the player to go out into the world, collect items, combine items, manipulate items, however you want to play, into something that would help them. So let's run over to the priest, because he has some like healing potions and stuff. Maybe we can craft her some allergy something. He's got his own problems, obviously. His voice transforms into an unbearable cacophony of ghastly whispers whenever he conducts healing rituals. So that's probably a fun problem to solve, but let's grab some salve, maybe some nectar. And I think what we want to do, maybe we'll combine a bee with our salve. Maybe we can get some sort of like pollen-y thing or something. This is kind of the fun beginning of the game, I think, where you're combining stuff and just figuring out what you get. So honey salve with maybe aloe. Can we buy aloe? We can. So we'll craft something real quick and I'll just run back over. Whether it helps or not, we'll give it to her. If I can remember where she's at. So we got soothing aloe honey salve. And we'll give her a little help with that. Maybe we combine wool with that or something to make it a little more... No, we'll just give her the salve. So all you do, you've got this existing conversation with her. It should actually have summarized it for us, but that might be a small bug. But once you have an item that you think it'll help, you just drag it on over, give it to her. We don't have any animations for them thinking right now, but she's thinking right now. And under the hood, we're asking an AI like, hey, here's the whole problem. Here's her personality. Here's her profession. Here's the whole conversation you've had. Here's the item, its stats, its attributes, everything. Does this solve her problem? And so we saw that that item didn't solve the problem. She gives a comment that it's a lavish treatment for the skin, but doesn't help her allergic reactions. And so you get more opportunities to give her other items if you prefer. She actually has the item. Maybe it's not in her inventory right now. Or maybe she used it. But most of the time when you give them an item, it'll be in their inventory. So if it didn't help and you really want it back, you could buy it back. if you craft a really cool item and you want to give it to them. But that's kind of the main gameplay loop there. Of course, there's lots of NPCs in town with each of their own problems, so you want to meet them all, figure out like what their problem is, find out who you might be able to help with what you have. Obviously, we start with a bunch of items here just for testing, but that's a good segue to collecting items in the world. You'll see that actually every object in the world, minus some of the basically what's in town, as you go out into the world, you can interact with anything. So we've got a shade tree here, we've got an oak tree, we've got bushes. If we were to go and punch this oak tree, use our bare hands on it, we don't have a recipe in the game for what happens when you use bare hands on oak tree. So again, we're asking an AI, hey, what do you get when you just use your hands on an oak tree? You get an oak branch. Okay. But we do have, I think, a recipe for what happens when you use an axe on an oak tree. We might not. We actually don't. But you use an axe on an oak tree, it's generating an item under the hood. It's probably going to be oak logs. Yeah. So it generates a description for it, a name, an image, all that jazz. It actually gets saved in our recipe book. So if you go over, check out our oak tree interactions, that's how you figure out, oh, I need oak logs, so I need to go use an axe on an oak tree to get that oak logs. But you can actually use any item you want on anything you want. So if we wanted to take this electrified resin that we made earlier, use that on the oak tree, it's going to do the same process of asking that AI, hey, what do you get when you use an electrified resin on an oak tree? And we get zapped oak logs, which might have a purpose, might not. Might have a purpose later on, but now that recipe is permanently in the game, so anytime that somebody is like, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh yeah, those zapped oak logs might be helpful in crafting something new. Maybe we mix that with the golem's heart, and we try and make some sort of like golem to help out a farmer or something. We know where to get those zapped oak logs now. So we got a Heartwood Guardian. So this description, all those stats and everything, all get pulled into when you give that item to any NPC, and it determines whether their quest is fulfilled. But we also have workstations in the game for manipulating items in different ways. So we've got here our anvil and our furnace. I'm actually working on both of those right now, so we'll see if they're rigged up to actually work. But the anvil has a way to break down items. So, for example, if we broke down our fruit salad, we get back a lemon and an apple. And that's just because the recipe was generated earlier when we combined those things. So apple and lemon makes fruit salad all the time. But if we did a berry and a lemon, which doesn't have a recipe, we'll get something else. But if we break that down, obviously it'll break back down into a berry and a lemon. So it's just it's an undo button, basically, if you craft something and you're like, I don't actually want this. So we get those back. But the other cool system on the anvil that we'll work on today is being able to put an item into the anvil and use it as a material to craft something. So craft a lemon axe or a zapped oak logs shield or something like that, where you'll collect these recipes of items that you can craft. You'll place an item into the slot that you want to use as a material, click the recipe button, it'll craft that from that item. I think that's kind of cool. A little more guidance of like, oh, I need an axe. You're not really worried about, will these two items actually make an axe? You're more worried about like, what material do I want to make my axe out of? And similarly, when you have an axe, if you go check out the furnace, you can augment items here or like refine them. So if you have an axe and you drop it in this first slot where the item will be changed, you could then maybe bring in, what's a good item? Zapped oak logs or something. drop it in that second slot, it'll melt down that item and take its essence and combine it into the axe. So maybe you'll get an electric axe or something like that. So there's lots of different systems basically for combining items, changing items, just collecting items really. So we could use, I don't know, what do we got? Wool. What happens if you use wool on a campfire? Lots of different ways that you can just kind of explore this world and discover what happens. So you're kind of taking this guy's role as he's just traveled to this town. He's here to help. He's figuring stuff out as you are. And it's all different every time you play, which I think is pretty cool. But once you've played a little bit within a game, all those recipes get saved. You can kind of learn the world really well. You can go and collect very specific things that you want or think you need. And you can help out all these people, build up those relationships with them. We got a couple blacksmiths, we got an apothecary, we got a priest over there. We'll add a lot more, but these are just some placeholder people for now. But yeah, they're fun. And the last system that is still very work in progress, more so than all the others, I'd say, is this like religious system. So if you want, you can drag an item into a little sacrifice slot for this statue, and you can write your own prayer. Please bless this chisel to craft statues in your honor. And right now, it's kind of up to chance whether this deity in the world grants your request or not. But we're going to have a lot more of that context built in of like, here's a list of all the stuff that the player has done recently. Does it align with what this deity wants them to do? If it does, then they will grant the request, grant your prayer or whatever it is. And if it doesn't, they might curse your item or something. So here we got a Lillian's chisel, which is just enhanced craftsmanship. It's got some stats on it which don't really do much right now, just for giving it to NPCs. We still need to build in the player stats. But if you were to take maybe an axe in and say like, please bless this axe with the ability to kill gods like you, I'm sure that this deity would not grant this blessing. But we'll see. Oh, did we break something? We might have. But they did grant the blessing. So we get an axe of the God Slayer. And sometimes you get like a humble axe that's like -10 damage. That's like, oh, you thought you could kill a god. But sometimes they are like, yeah, I trust that you'll use this well. So it's kind of fun. We still need to hook up item generation on this aspect of crafting too. But, I mean, that's kind of all the systems that we have right now. Obviously, it's a very, very large world with lots and lots of different objects that you can interact with. We've got different biomes. We've got forest. We've got this like lake biome over here. Way over there, there's a big old desert with geysers and hot springs, and there's a beach over here. We've got some like obsidian mountains, gemstones in this mountain. Lots and lots of stuff to explore, and all those things are things that you can interact with as a player and use any item you want on anything. So lots of stuff to do. So we're working on our first demo to put on Steam real soon. We'll get it into your hands real soon. And then our next priority is going to be like working more on these NPC quests and fulfilling those quests a lot more impactful to the world, changing the world, and making you feel a lot more rewarded when you actually go through all the process of figuring out the perfect item to help this guy and then finally crafting it and bringing it back to him and giving it to him, and he does something cool instead of saying thank you. But yeah, I think what we're going to do on this stream is I will probably turn on some music or something, and I'm going to work on these two workstations here. We've got our anvil, which we have salvaging working for breaking down items, but we don't have the smithing working for choose a material and then craft an item from it. And we also don't have the furnace working where you drag in an item to be changed and melt down a different item to use its essence. So those are the two things we'll build on stream today. And we built a bunch of really cool like prompt libraries and stuff for interacting with our API, which shout out to our API. We're using the Chroma Golem API, which is our own, and you can use it too. So all this stuff that we are doing, you can do it as well. You can sign up and get started for free. We give a bunch of credits for free because we want to see cool games. So let's turn on some music. I'm going to put on my headphones and we'll get to jamming. What do we got here? Let me double check that my desktop audio is muted, because last stream I played music all stream and did not have that muted, and it got my stream muted for copyright stuff. Well, I sure hope I do, because I didn't mute my Twitch. So, unless I've been echoing this whole time, which I have not, just checked, we should be good to go. Cool, cool, cool. So, what do we want to listen to? Sure. Alright, we'll start with the anvil first, I think, because we already have some pieces of it built. And if anybody has music requests, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll throw them on too. I'm just here to jam. So the hard question for both of these is how we want to store the recipes to make what you craft deterministic. Because right now we have crafting recipes in the game for combining two items, acorn and amber or whatever, and that stores in a recipe that gets stored in a recipe database and all this jazz that we can query to determine if next time you combine acorn and amber, if there's already a recipe. Eternal Oak Charm. That's pretty cool. But at the anvil, if we were to drag in amber here and craft, say, like a dagger, we want to make sure that what you get there is always the same, right? And I guess it could be different every time. But I feel like doing it once the first time is probably, or like having the randomness once the first time is probably enough. After that, you can just craft the same thing over and over again. There's plenty of items if you want more randomness. Make like a bucket helmet or something. So what we want to store in our recipe database is a material and a crafting recipe, I believe. We could also have an actual item, like a dagger or an axe or something. And then it's kind of the same system as using our furnace. If you were to put a axe here and then amber here, should you get the same output? Because it's kind of, you would do it at different times. Like if you already have the axe, if you want an amber axe for whatever reason, or maybe you want a fire axe. If you have that axe, you could bring it to the furnace, place the axe in, put a fire in, you'll get a fire axe. If you want a fire axe and you don't have an axe, then you'd come here, place the fire in, and craft an axe. Do they need to be different? I don't think so. Could be the same recipes. Because it's not really like duplicating, it's just more consistency, I think. So we'll use the same recipes. So in this case, we will want to have the actual structure of the recipe we're storing is an item name for the material and an item name for what we're crafting. Axe, dagger, sword, shield, helmet, whatever. And over here, it's also item name for what we're crafting and an item name for the material. So let's go build that. Right. Oh. Sometimes I'm blind. So we started on a variant recipe, kind of planning out the furnace last stream, but I think we'll change it up. Because we were also considering including the workstation name on the variant recipe itself. And that would mean if you picture a furnace here and then like the exact same thing but call it a reinforcement station or something. If we were to put a helmet here and then steel, or maybe we put like a helmet mold here and steel, you'd craft a helmet, a steel helmet that way. But at the other crafting recipe, if you were to put or at the other crafting station, if you put a helmet mold here and some steel in this and you craft, it might give you like reinforced helmet mold or something. So I'm not sure that we want that or not. Maybe let's hold off on the workstation name until we know that we're going to be doing multiple workstations there and have them use separate recipes. But I bet we will. Just write some comments and maybe gather our thoughts a little bit. I think we'll probably not do this for now. It might add too much complexity, and like not the fun kind. So we'll just leave that to do for now, and we'll strip out the workstation name. But I don't know that we want to call it variant recipe anymore if we're just going with this new kind of crafting, really. But we'll keep that for now. So let's make sure that is all set up in our excuse me. All right, I think we're set up to use. Use these recipes. So let's rig it up at the anvil. We'll come back to that based on how we set things up. But that should be all we need. We just need to create that prefab. So we will add a script to this for loading in data, setting the button on click, setting the label text, icon, etc. So all the stuff we need there is public image, we still need a reference to the material slots item. So the two approaches we can take are either put the crafting callback here and set it on the button manually, or just fetch the material slot from each button. I feel like here might be better. And we just do something like new recipe button dot get component button dot on click dot something like that. Yeah, that'll be fine. So we don't need the button reference. This will populate the grid. We'll want to make sure that these are just items that already exist. Let's grab a few. Fishing rod, hoe, and net. Those will be fine. So this will set the label and image find. This will handle logic for when you click it. It'll call this. So now the fun stuff, public prompt. Should we put that on like the recipe database? Probably. Public prompt craft item from material. So what we need to do is set up and call the craft item with material prompt coroutine, and then we'll have a callback for that. I guess we only do that if we don't already have a recipe. So we want to say check if a variant recipe already exists for this item plus material combination. If exists, do it. Else. And then here is where the AI will have run. We will have generated the new item. And we want to add new item to inventory, discover new item, add variant recipe to the game database, and discover variant recipe. We do still need to think through how we want to display those variant recipes in our codex window with all the recipes because they're slightly different. But we'll figure that out later. We're working with item names. Consumed an augmented item name. Will this return null if there's nothing? First, when you expect it to have at least one element, not true. First or default, excellent. There might be an element or not, that's what we want. Hopefully it returns null for our default. Or the default value, okay. I think default for our custom classes is null. We can test that, but it's whatevs. So really we don't need this, because either it's going to return null, and therefore this will not be either it'll have something or it won't. Let's clean that up a little bit. Okay, so here we now variant recipe for that, but consumed material name is actually what's our item slot? Inventory slot manager. We use a slot. We just need to rig it up. So now we've got our item material name, Coolio. So if we don't have a recipe, we need to create one. If we do have a recipe, then this should actually have a public string output item name, maybe? How do we do it with our regular recipes? Is it a real item? Yeah, resulting item name. Okay. Let's call it resulting item name. Interesting. So we only create the recipe when we also have the output as well. So maybe we should do that similarly here. Probably so. But if we assume that we do that, here, when we have a recipe, we should have an output item as well. So item resulting item is equal to our recipe dot resulting item name. So that's the name. We actually need to go grab it. And then add this to the player's inventory. We also got to clear the material slot in both cases. My cat just fell asleep in my lap and fell out of it. Oh. It's okay, bud. I'm sure he'll be back. We don't actually want to clear the slot. We want to reduce its stack size by 1, which will clear it if it gets to 0, but that lets us keep clicking to craft items 1 at a time. Okay. So we've got the case where we probably also want to show item received UI pop-up. We also want to redraw the inventory. I forgot I already built that. Cool. Redraw the inventory. AI is crazy, man. All right, so that'll work. We might need to, I don't know if this actually redraws. It doesn't. So we probably need to redraw the material slot as well. Yeah. Maybe not. We'll see. It'll be very obvious if it breaks. This is just the data. So yeah, the inventory slot manager, we probably need to just do it separately. Okay. So if we already have a recipe for, say, crafting a helmet with a bucket, everything should just work. We will fetch the bucket helmet item off of the variant recipe and add it to the player's inventory, reduce the stack size in our material slot, which would be the stack of buckets, and show they receive that item, redraw the inventory. But the more interesting and fun path is there is no recipe for crafting a helmet out of a piece of butter. So we need to build that. And we will do that by using our prompt and filling it out with the details that we need. But let's go ahead and let's jump over and build that prompt first. Item crafting from material. Let's steal the item structure here. All right, I can never talk and type at the same time, so enjoy the song. say it's kind of a bland example. Let's go with and then maybe we give another example of something else. We haven't built armor into the game. I wonder if it's gonna error if we add some keys for it, like 5 armor or something. Won't error here, but when we start serializing into the actual item. Waterlogged axe. Don't want them all to be negative, but okay, let's try helmet for some armor. I guess we can just put armor in the attributes. Let's do that. Then we don't have to worry about it. Okay, that makes sense. Wet helmet. Water spout helmet. Give you some swim speed. Dirt. Mud helmet. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. All right, we can work with that. So all we gotta do is say prompt filled it out. Prompt, it already knew. It's equal to recipe database dot instance dot craft item with material. We'll say base item name. And we'll need to serialize this to JSON. But we do need to go fetch that. Say a material slot, item in this slot. We don't want that to actually work. We want an error if it's empty because, you know. Let's go see how we serialized. I think JSON convert is what we used. Yeah. So now we've got these. We can just say base item name, and it'll put in whatever base item name we have, and material. We'll call it material data even, to be a little more obvious. It's a JSON blob. Cool. And they're the same length. Wow. Cool. So that'll fill out our user prompt for this instruction set based on the items that the user is actually using to do this crafting. And then we will say start coroutine for that guy. And then we get back our item JSON blob, which we saw. Probably aren't going to get anything here because we have the placeholders in now. Yeah. But we get back in a JSON blob that we deserialize. And we basically do a lot of the same things here. And just want to make sure that, yeah, we are discovering the new variant recipe, so the next time you do it, it'll trigger this. This. Redraw the inventory. Show that pop-up. Add the item to the item database and discover it so the player can see it in their codex. Cool. And yeah, now that we have our output item, we'll want to do this. Well, let's see. Yeah. So now we can create our variant recipe. We can save it to the database. Probably want a little nice little helper there, maybe. Add global recipe. We can just do a similarly down here, we want to have a helper for discovering it. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. What are we doing here? Only add new recipes if there are a different combination of ingredients. Sure, that's fine. This shouldn't ever hit, but it is nice to have, I suppose, if we are trying to add a variant recipe somehow that already exists. We don't want to duplicate it because this is not a hash set, right? Yeah, it's a list. We don't gotta redraw the codex yet because we're not even showing them, but we probably will. Cool. All right, that should be fine. So here we want add variant recipe and also discover variant recipe. The difference is add actually just adds it to the game database. So like it exists, NPCs can use it, the player can craft it if they use the recipe, blah, blah, blah. Discover is the player has seen it, so it'll show up in their notes of like recipes they've seen, stuff like that. And lastly, we want to do a to-do, remove the VFX loading for crafting items. All this stuff that we haven't added in yet to like have a little animation when players are crafting stuff. We'll also want to do that down here. Though we might end up putting this in a coroutine as well, so we can yield for like a second or two while it plays the animation and then stop playing it. We'll see. But this should work. Let's make sure we set all our references and then test it out. So let's say recipe or smithing recipe button. And we are setting that button event on click somewhere, I think. Yeah, we are. Okay. So we'll save that prefab. It's somewhere it doesn't belong. Then we go up to our anvil window to set that. Set our grid there. We still need to set up the inventory slot we're using. So let's get our inventory slot manager. And how do we want to do this? Maybe wonder if awake will call at the right time. Something like that should do it. We just create a temporary inventory of size 1, assign that first slot to our slot here. So if we add or remove items from the inventory, it just shows up in that slot. Dragging items into that slot adds it to that inventory, and so on. And then we could public override void callback on window hide. We can say clear the material slot and add any item in it back to the player's inventory. We'll do that later. But it's a separate inventory, so when you close the window, you want to give it back to the player. Okay, so is everything hooked up? Slot has everything, probably. Yeah. Might just work. So what we want to do, we logged error on purpose so we can see our awake call when it happens. So let's get our console rolling. What is this? Oh, right. Okay. So when we open that, it should have set it correctly. Okay. So if we go over to smithing, cool. We have the different items we can craft now. That's awesome. If we were to put a bucket in our slot for material and craft a net. Material slot is empty. Is Anvil Window Manager's material slot set? Wait, why don't we have... Is it private? Why don't we have a material slot? Oh, you know what? That's fine. It's not serializable, I think. So we'll just grab it off the inventory slot manager. We don't really need to make it serializable. So let's do this. Find our errors. And all we'll do is just fetch it off that. Let's see. How do we want to do this? Let's go see if we have a helper for getting first inventory slot or something. Get item. Right. Cool. That should be everything. Let's try again. Cool. Guess we can get rid of this. But let's make a net out of a bucket. Oh, right. We didn't set that prompt, I think. Databases, recipe database, yeah. And I think we can get rid of refining item. I think that's what we were starting with that became this. So let's make sure we get no errors removing that, but we'll drag in the prompt from material, Coolio, Coolio. Once more, we try again. Smithing, bucket, net. I guess, oh, advanced catching net. Okay. I mean, that isn't really made of a bucket, but the bucket's resilience has been repurposed. Okay. So what if we made a pickaxe out of a bucket? Improvised pickaxe. Okay, so I am noticing I don't think we're saving the recipe because we're getting a different item every time. And what do we get here? That'll let us see the item data next time. But let's look through our flow. Because here, the first time we do it, we should have an item name of a bucket. We should be fetching the variant recipe for net bucket. Where net bucket. Okay. So it should be null. We go in, we put net bucket, head down to this, serialize the response, create variant recipe of, wait, these are all the same. Oh, right, it's actually item data. Something like that. So now we can pass through the item data, but also the original item and material name. Item and material name. And in the variant recipe once, base item name and material name. And our output is correct. All right, let's try this once more. We can reproduce by just crafting the same item twice with the same material. We'll see if we get the same item or if it's different. Sculptor's hoe makes sense. We used it. Oh, we don't have any more chisels. Okay, let's actually use cactus. Cactus axe. Prickly axe. Okay. Do we get more of them or something new? Something new. Okay. Did get a prickly axe again, but that's probably on accident. Amber scythe. Amber scythe. Amber scythe. Amber edged scythe. Okay. So something's not quite right still. Let's go add some debug statements. All variant recipes, discovered variant recipes. Let's make sure we're okay. All variant recipes. Make sure those are in the right order. Alrighty, let's watch the logs now. Okay, quick fix there. They're putting it in JSON tags. Easy fix is only print valid JSON. Do not write any other text or JSON tags. Easy peasy. That's probably what was the error on the other ones too. All right. Next. Cactus axe. Adding new variant recipe gives a prickly axe. Axe plus cactus. Okay, didn't find a recipe. Crafting item axe with material cactus. So now, if we clear this, craft another one. Did not find a recipe. So this guy didn't find what we're looking for. Why? So when we discover this new recipe, that's not triggering. Here, when we discover it, we're outputting number of discovered variant recipes, which we never see. Interesting. Oh, maybe this is working as it should. Because we should already have a recipe for these. But, okay. Do we see this? Adding new variant recipe. No. Oh, we do. Okay. Well, cactus and axe. Cactus. They're backwards. Axe is the augmented item. I was worried that might be the case. Okay. So it should always be base, then consumed. Wait. I remember about 20 minutes ago when I renamed these like this, and I was like, I'm not using these yet. Surely renaming them this way won't have any issues. I was technically using them 5 lines later. They're just backwards. So base item goes here. Consumed item name. That's such a bad name. Item material name. And yeah, let's call this base item name. All right, so switching these back should fix it. And the crafting itself was fine. It's just saving the recipes and fetching them. We were saving cactus plus axe instead of axe plus cactus. So when we went and looked for the same recipe again later, it just wasn't finding it because they were backwards. All right, so let's do amber scythe. Let's give it a second, make sure there's no AI stuff going on in the background with NPCs. Cool. Okay. Crafting scythe item with amber. Did not find a recipe. Generated an item. Redrawing the inventory. It makes an amber scythe. Great. Harvest speed, durability, and luck. Cool, cool, cool. We still need to rig up images, but that's fine. Let's clear it and let's do one more. Recipe found false. Rude. Okay. New plan. We will do it ourselves. Go inspect the data, I suppose. This sounds like it'd be on Tony Hawk. Fugazi. It's kind of a bop. All right, so now bamboo fishing rod. we're going to go in, find our all variant recipes. There are 0. That makes sense. So it should return null. Recipe is null. Cool. Let's hit play. Get an item back. Bamboo fishing rod makes sense. We make another now. We go in. Oops. Well, that works. We have 1. Base. The heck is base? Wait a second. Absolutely not a mono behavior. I don't know what effect that's going to have, but that's enough that I bet it was causing an issue. I don't know if it's the issue. Causing a issue for sure, though. Let's try this one some more. Right, not him. Coral, pickaxe. Continue. It's fine. Now we clear and let's do it again. All right, now we actually have variant recipes instead of whatever object we had before. Does it return the recipe? It does. Wow. Okay. So we just get the same thing again. Great. Let's take our breakpoints out and test it a little more thoroughly. And it should also be instant on the subsequent graphs. So that's a little easier to tell. If we do brick scythe, maybe. We get a brick scythe, sure. We do need to make sure it has a description. We should add that to the example stuff, but this should be immediate. Okay, cool. Brick scythes. Nice. So, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, but the things that we need to do now are 1, add a description. Let's take a little note so we can just keep a to-do list. Oh boy. Don't dox myself. I don't know what all those are. All right. Add item description. Add item image. We also want to... There was something else. Right? Those will be fine for now. We'll remember what it is later. We make some bee axes. Buzz axe. Bee attraction high. Excellent. Oh, right. We need to figure out how we want to display it in our codex. Because it probably should go under recipes. But let's generate something so we can see an example recipe. Because right now all the recipes that show are just item combining. So you get this if you combine this with this, but we need a slightly different way to display that information of you get this when you use this or use this on this. So we will play with that. But those are our next to-dos. I will be right back. Thanks for tuning in. You're the best. I can never remember which of these is. Is this muted? No. Okay, we're good. Alright, we are back. We vibing. We chilling. We got our item crafting / blacksmithing system working. You can now collect recipes. I don't know how we want to collect recipes yet. Maybe we'll have another slot down here that lets you stick like an axe in, and then you get that as a recipe. You can craft items in various materials. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But with recipes, you can now craft items in whatever material you want. So clay, pickaxe. Surely that will give us a clay pickaxe. Clay coated pickaxe. Maybe we tweak our prompt a little bit. Did we have descriptions? Yeah, we did. Okay. So let's go do that. We'll start with that. So let's add descriptions to these outputs, first of all. some cheeky outputs. Sure. Probably want better descriptions there just for setting the tone for the AI, but those will do for now to make sure we're getting descriptions and we can generate some later. And then finally here, protects your head even if you, well, let's say it protects your head. Looking stupid is better than being dead. Cool. And this bucket is half this bucket is empty. Cool. So that should give us descriptions. We will flag that to test later. We can also rig up image generation. And so that'll happen only in this case where we're generating the recipe and the item for the first time. Here, we'll want to look at how we're generating images elsewhere. We're probably going to refactor a lot of it to give it like a central pipeline that we can say like, hey, here's a new image, go do all the stuff that we need for new items, I mean. But for now, we'll do it manually. So we'll need to like basically insert a little extra bit into this item. So let's go look at, let's see, I think it's, here's how we are generating images for items, and then we have a got image for item. So we'll just take this for now. It's gonna be fine, I promise. We'll take that and also got image for item. We'll change both of those in a sec, but just getting the flow down. So rather than all of this, what we need to do is generate an image. And we'll want to pass through the same data. But basically this will take the image data and generate the image for it, and then when it has an image, it'll kick us back to got image for item. And that's where we'll want to do all this jazz. So, how do we want to pipe this up? We could just do this, but I think we want to pass these along. Or we could just hoist this up to like a global recipe being crafted or something, since we're only going to have one at a time anyway. That might be a little cleaner than passing it around through parameters everywhere. So we'll say this. And then we can set it in here. Though I guess, yeah, we can just create the recipe. It doesn't need an image. So let's do that. Steal this. There might be some race conditions or something, but we're probably golden. So we don't actually need this. So once we've created the actual output item, we can save that recipe. We can start generating the image for that item. Then when we have the image, that's when we want to actually add it to the inventory, because we don't want the players to see it before it has the image. We can go ahead and... Oh, this is the new item. You know, we could do these. Up here as well. But let's hold off until it's actually like the item is complete, I think. So I think this will work. Let's test it. But this should now, one, the items we generate should all have descriptions, and two, they should also have images if everything's working correctly. So smithing, let's use chalk and make an X. We might also want to tweak the prompt to say like, this is the actual material being used instead of like just coding it or something. So it is taking longer, I assume, because we are also generating an image. No errors yet. It does seem a lot longer than I would expect, though. Okay, we're doing something. Chalk pickaxe. You know what? I bet I'm never calling. There's probably like a break in the flow. Craft item with material. Start coroutine jumps us here. Generate image for item. This guy never calls. Oh, it does call got image for item. It's a weird way to... Alrighty, we will just trace through ourselves. You know, before we do that, let's make a quick tweak to the prompt. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Aluminium. Scythe. Okay, we have an item in the slot. Aluminum. No recipe. Cool, cool, cool. I guess we... We shouldn't be deleting these while tracing through because the line will get out of sync. All right, recipe is null. We should go in here. Okay. That fills out a prompt. We want to jump into this, but not that far in. Okay. Let's go back out. All right, we can just do okay. I don't know if it'll refresh the breakpoints. Let's just reset it. So we'll probably populate this list based on your blacksmithing skill, and you'll just unlock more items when you do more smithing, starting with like dagger and other tools and stuff. So we've got all these skills and stuff. So that's probably how we'll populate this list, I just realized. Yeah. Let's see here. Amber. Axe. Should go in here. Yeah, we start our coroutine. Coolio. Populate smithing recipes. Why? Okay, so now we're here. We've got item data, which has a description. Coolio. Parses correctly. We save our variant recipe. And why didn't we start generating that image? Generate image for item. Oh, it's a coroutine, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Is that right? Let's see how we do it elsewhere. Yeah. Yeah, just forgot to actually trigger the coroutine, so I bet, yeah, when we yield down here, it just never comes back. Alright, let's disconnect from Unity. Let's do the full flow. I think that'll fix it. Just realized my music's not coming through on the stream, but whoops, sorry about that. Guess it's fine. I can hear it at least. I'm just bopping along. It is set to the right window, but it's fine. Wonder why. I mean, I guess I could turn desktop audio on and just exclude it from the VOD. I do something like this. That'll be fine, probably, hopefully. You know what? I don't want to mess with that in case I do it wrong and I get my stream muted again. I'll just figure out the music after the stream. It's all good. All right, let's see if this works. Chalk, pickaxe. Generating our item, generating our image for a chalky pickaxe. We have a chalky pickaxe, a pickaxe with a grip as dusty as a classroom chalkboard. And if we do it again, we get the same one, same image. Cool. Pickaxes are notoriously hard to generate images for, so maybe let's try a chalk net, I suppose, or maybe a coral net afterwards. That's a terrible image too, but you know, it works. We can always tweak it later. Let's try our coral net. Better. +1 durability, sure. We still got to figure out how we want to do attributes. Here's a fun little exploit, I assume. If we take our 6 bees and make shears, take the bees out, we now have 6 bees and buzzy shears. Wow. Make buzzy shears, make shears out of it. What do we get there? So we also got to lock this inventory slot when you start crafting, I suppose. We got buzzy shears again, but with a different image. Interesting. So we want to make sure that we're only generating the image if we don't already have an item of that name. Yeah, so we want to say item existing item is equal to item database instance.find item item.item name. If existing item is equal to null, then we're going to generate our new image for it. If there is an existing item with this name, we don't need to generate an image for it. So we can just say got image for item with a null so it won't override the image, and then follow our same flow. Cool. Either way, we do want to add this recipe to the database. However, yeah, I guess we don't need to branch on the item name because it's going to have the same name either way. Okay, so this will be fine. I think that's all correct. Alright, let's reset so we load in the new compiled scripts and then just craft a few things, make sure it's all looking good. Curious why this guy's audio isn't being picked up, but it's all fine. All right. Well, all I had to do was turn it off and turn it back on again. Enjoy the music, hopefully. Okay, so if we make clay axe, first one should take a bit. It's using the clay's description just fine. Clay axe, okay. An axe that looks like it was made by a child. Not very effective. Sure. Craft a couple. Let's also make a net, I suppose. Clay net, sure, sure. So if we take a clay axe and make another axe, what are we gonna get? Clay axe with no image. Same stats, no image. So we did skip over generating a new image for it correctly. So the item's image should already be set. Wonder if we need to be like saving the asset itself. Existing item. Not our new item. Our new item does not have an image set, but our existing item does. Easy peas. All right. Coral axe, Coolio. Let's do it. We will get a coral axe with an image. Sure. Make a couple of those. We put the coral axe in and make another axe. Enchanted coral axe. Sure. New item. Fine, fine. Let's try a bone pickaxe. Ooh, bone scythe maybe would be cool too. A grim scythe. Sick. Alright, we'll use our grim scythe as a material to make another scythe. I don't know if we'll let players put tools in because we literally have items labeled as material. Maybe this will only take material items. But it could be a cool way to like upgrade your weapons. But if we go over, for example, use our fists on the campfire to get like ashes or fire or something. Ash pile. Maybe we... Let's go chop some logs with an axe. So we can get logs that will catch on fire, use those logs on the campfire to get fire, hopefully. Use oak logs on campfire. Will we get some sort of fiery material? Charcoal. Okay, getting closer. What if we use charcoal on the fire? Activated charcoal. Sure, sure, sure. Let's combine oak logs with charcoal. Maybe that'll light them on fire. Enchanted oak charcoal. Okay, not quite. But we do have some new materials. Let's see what we can do with them. Alright. Charcoal. Pickaxe. Smoky pickaxe. Oak logs, axe. An oak axe, sure. An axe made of wood, that makes sense. What if we use that as material to make a fishing rod? Will it make a wooden fishing rod, maybe? An improvised fishing rod? Okay. Let's see. Clay net. Oh, we already did that one, actually. In another game. It was kind of boring. It just makes a clay net. Might not survive the water. Yeah, that makes sense. Charcoal shears. Or chalk, I suppose. Dole shears. Okay. I mean, I think these are all working really well. They're all like suitably weak for what I would hope to get at the beginning of the game. A lot of them have like downsides, but as you go get cooler or more powerful items, you can craft more and more stuff that enhances them versus like keeps them roughly the same power level. Let's try a brick axe. Then we'll just do like a never-ending pattern of a repeat. So we have a heavy axe now. Let's make an axe from our heavy axe. See what happens when we just go through this path. Still generating. Suspicious. Double heavy axe. Sure. Alright. Let's make an axe out of that. An ultra heavy axe. Sure, sure. Ultra heavy sharp axe. Excellent. Okay, we've reached the point where it crafts the same thing that you get out. Okay, I think that's fine. That's like a end state for like a crafting tree, I guess, if you visualize it. If we were to take that and make a scythe out of it, would it... What would it give us? Ultra heavy scythe. Sure. With the jankiest image. Make another scythe out of that. Sure, sure. I think we want to redo our item tooltip soon, but it's probably fine now. Ultra heavy scythe still. Okay. So it's kind of reached the end. But we could take that and maybe like collect some feathers or something from someone. I think maybe the apothecary might have some. Any feathers? No. Maybe she should have some, but let's do a flower. It's kind of given the vibes of whatever that crafting game was a few months ago that everyone loved, infinite crafting with AI, but in a world, which is kind of what we're going for. There's so much of this world to explore and also get new items that way. But obviously you could just stay in town and keep crafting, but you can go out and collect new stuff as well. I think the key is going to be, can we make these items useful enough that you like have a purpose to craft them? Will they be useful to the NPCs? Can you use them yourself? Outside of like, we have this blossom scythe now, which is kind of sick. It has a increased chance to gather rare botanical items. So maybe if we take that and use it on a bush over here, maybe we'll get something rare. Would that be useful? Maybe. Come on, give us something rare. Make it useful. Enchanted petals. Okay. Harvested by a tool touched by nature's essence. If we use this blossom scythe on an oak tree, do we get something rare there? Fragrant oak wood. Sure, sure. What about on a campfire? Maybe we'll try one of the herbs out in the forest after this too. So we got eternal embers. Rare embers. Okay, I guess we might as well try the birch tree while we're here. Eternal embers and a bone. So enchanted birch sapling, sure, that seems rare. Getting some cool stuff from the scythe. Should be some herbs growing around here somewhere. Let's try a small bush, I guess. A phantom torch. It's kind of cool. Enchanted blossoms. Okay, okay. So we're getting some cool stuff from the item we crafted to use as a tool. I like that. I'm a little suspicious that there's no herbs. Okay. They're actually just really poorly lit. I see. So let's try our scythe on some breeze balm. It's probably just going to give us breeze balm, to be honest. Breeze balm petals? Sure. Okay. What about on a solar blossom? Luminous petals, sure. Oh dang, those are worth a lot. But if we were to just use our fists, we should get the solar blossom just as the flower. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, definitely a difference in the items you choose. So if we use an axe, what do you get on that? Or maybe a bucket even. Solar blossom petals, sure. Those are very similar to our luminous petals, but sure. That's some consistency stuff to work on. Let's try our bucket. And then we'll check out the codex and see what else we're working on this stream. Solar blossom essence. Okay. So bucket's probably nice to have. So recipes. These are the only things we've crafted, I guess, because we've just been doing variant crafting. But lots of objects, discovered interactions with for getting all these. So this will fill out nicely, I think. This is sorted. Okay, good. I don't know if these are also sorted. They look like they are. Yeah, I think they are. Okay. So yeah, things are looking good. We've got our variant crafting system in. Maybe we go use that exact same system and go rig up the furnace too. So the furnace is going to function almost the same way, where with the anvil, disregard all those bugs. Don't worry about it. We've got coroutines on coroutines running in the background, and I'm patiently putting input in the right order, but clicked on some stuff I shouldn't have. But yes, with the anvil, if we want to make a cactus scythe, all we need is the cactus. We put cactus in, we click scythe, we get a cactus scythe, probably. Cactus scythe, sure, that's definitely a picture of it, I promise. But at the furnace, the difference would be we would need a scythe that we would put in here, and then we would put in a cactus there, and then that is how we would craft our cactus scythe. So really it's like this is for the blacksmithing skill, and probably just the blacksmithing skill, versus and I guess this like has a very limited number of items you craft, which are dictated by your level in the blacksmithing skill, versus this is more open-ended, probably gives some blacksmithing experience but also some alchemy experience, and you can basically have any item you want as if it were in this list. You just need to consume that item as well, so a little bit extra cost for a little bit of extra freedom. So we probably want to unlock this like later on, after you've used the anvil a bit, so you understand the system here and can jump in here. But we can get this furnace working. So let's first check in what we've got. Get anvil blacksmithing working. Cool. And we'll jump over to the furnace window, which should be a lot simpler because it only has one tab. Definitely looks a lot simpler there. Let's bring our anvil window manager. So really, we're just gonna try and run through this, I think. So maybe I'll turn up the music a little bit and let you guys jam while I work. Ooh, maybe we do want like a fuel slot too. Just use an item as fuel. It's a nice little item sink. Gives you a purpose for items you don't want anymore. kind of need to order this visual hierarchy a little bit better so it's clear that this item is the important one and this one will be destroyed. But we'll move stuff around later. I wonder, side note on the anvil, if I just write helmet, that's an item that doesn't exist. Let's double check that. Yeah, we don't have an item in the game called helmet. Will that just work? We'll find out. I want to make a bucket helmet. Okay, so no image. So I assume it probably errored. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Let's do this. Only set the image if there is an item. We could have a default image for like blacksmithable stuff that is named but we don't have an item yet for. Let's double check that that works, but that should let us just craft a helmet and it'll make the item even if we don't have a base helmet in the game already. Helmet, okay. It's not a real error, it's just our log error. Bucket, helmet. Bucket head armor. Perfect. It protects your head. Alright. A brick helmet. Sure. Alright. We'll obviously need to come back when we add real equipment to like also specify item slots, head, chest, whatever, and stats and stuff, but that's good enough for now. Let's go back to the furnace. Just wanted to get that working. You shouldn't still have an Anvil window manager on that. We do. Cool. Alright, just gotta do the logic now. So when we click smelt, we are going to look for a variant recipe with this base plus material. Right. I could have sworn we had to use empty. Apparently not. Oh, contains item. Silly name. Cool. Alright, so if we have a recipe, should be pretty simple. We can just use it. I'm a sucker for some neutral milk hotel. Alright, so we got an item. The item should exist at this point. We'll leave it in the check just in case. No, I want to see the actual error thrown. Oops. What's our tooltip controller? That's it. Okay. Easy peas. If a recipe already exists, we just give you that item, consume. Actually, this is not what we want. We want consumed item gets consumed, but base item slot gets changed. Dot set item data. We probably should limit those slots to just one item at a time. Or at least we'll do that. But for now we'll collapse it down to one item. Alright, so that does get consumed. We change the base item slot. We don't need to show that or add it to the inventory or redraw the inventory. But we should highlight base item slot to let the player know the item changed. Okay, easy. So the hard part is if there is not a recipe, gotta create a new recipe. Wow. So what we're gonna do is just basically the same stuff we did. You know, we can actually use the same prompt, I think. So this will be base item slot dot get item dot item name. This is consumed item slot dot get item. We'll need our on item crafted with material. And again, this is base item slot dot get item to item name and consumed item slot dot item name or get item name. So that'll kick off our prompt for crafting an item, a new item with our base using this material. So we might want to swap out that prompt later, but I think it's fine since we're using the same variant recipes for both. When we get our item, check to see if there's already an item with that name. We save the recipe that we've just created. That's correct. If there wasn't an item with that name, we're going to generate an image for it. If there was, we'll just skip forward. So let's do generate item for image next. Lots of copy and paste, and we're just getting it working for now. We will clean it all up later with our item creation pipeline. All right, so now this is all set. It's just going to make a request to Stable Diffusion for an image based on the item's name and description. So we'll bring this guy in as well. This is where the logic will diverge. So once we have our item that is created and our image for it, we set the image if it's new. And then we will do basically the same stuff that we did up here. Literally just change the base item slot and adjust the consumed item slot. So instead of all this, don't need that, don't need that. We will want to save this new item, I think. So that should just work. Magic. Slots are set correctly. The prompt should be on the recipe database already. It is. Let's give it a shot. Probably get an error, but it's whatevs. So if we now go to the furnace, it should have the item slots rigged up. So if we can bring items in. Let's put a brick here. So if we wanted a brick axe, basically our options are, well, let's take these back. So let's say we talk to an NPC and he has a problem. He's like, man, a brick axe would really help. So we have two options to make a brick axe. One, we can, if it basically splits on if we have an axe already. So we could go to the anvil, we could smith. If our smithing level is high enough to make an axe, we could drop brick there, make an axe this way. That would probably give us a brick axe. It does. However, if we didn't have if we did have an axe already, we didn't need to craft it here. Probably want some sort of extra cost here or something, but if we did have the axe already, we could go to the furnace, put an axe in here, smelt down a brick, does it work? Is this on click set? No on click. Furnace window. On furnace click smelted. So we click this. It consumed the brick. Alright, it's broke. Consuming them all. Oh wait, it is setting this correctly. We're just not redrawing this redraw slot display. We're not doing that on the base slot here. Yeah. Base item slot, redraw slot display. Cool. Let's just give it another shot from the scratch so we can recompile. All right, axe and clay. Should give us a clay axe, probably. Oh, right. Furnace window. What did I set? Oh, right, the action button. On furnace smelt clicked. Cool. Let's try this again. So we want a brick axe. It's smelting, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we animate this like getting destroyed or something. This has now been changed to a heavy axe. Cool. So now maybe we add some aluminum, melt that down into it. Break this down, maybe fade this in and out or something. We get a light heavy axe, an oxymoron incarnate. Light to hold, but heavy in impact. All right. Let's do some amber on it, make it even cooler. An amber light heavy axe, okay. So what happens if we just add more amber? Amber light heavy axe. Okay, not quite what we wanted there. Let's add a cactus. Probably should tell it to not generate the same item, but maybe not. Now we got a thorny heavy axe. Okay, it's fine. So basically our two new crafting setups. One of them is kind of like entry-level stuff where you put down a amber and you craft amber pickaxe, and like that is the end of the line there. You're not really going to use the amber pickaxe as a material. Maybe that's why we should probably limit this to just material items. But if you wanted to then modify your amber pickaxe, you could head on over. We got to get these back to the player inventory when you leave. But now you could head over to the furnace, stick the amber pickaxe over here, and start modifying it with whatever you want. Bamboo. Or whatevs. An amber bamboo pickaxe, sure. Okay. So that works, I'd say. They kind of have similar but different loops for using each. This is crafting new items, a lot of different ones, versus this is more for like you have one cool item and you want to add a bunch of stuff to it. So that works. Neato. So let's commit. Get the furnace variant crafting rigged up and working also. 10 out of 10 commit message. Don't mind if I do. And yeah, we really need to figure out how we want to display our variant recipes. We could have another tab here for like items, or maybe, yeah, let's craft a couple items here just so we have some stuff to look at for comparison. We got some bone cider. Heck yeah. Creepiness 10. Perfect. Let's just craft a few things just so we got a couple lines to work with. We probably eventually do want to have a page in the codex for a specific item. So you could like right click on Sculptor's Snack or right click on Apple really and see both all of the recipes that you could use to get an apple, but also all the recipes the apple is used in. That's cool. But that might be, maybe we also have a section on that page for variants of that object. It gets a little complicated in not a good way, because if you have, say, like an axe and a stone axe, they're each axes, and a stone axe might be a variant of an axe, but a stone axe itself might have its own variants that aren't going to display under the axe page. So you'd have to do some digging. Also, we got a ghost tooltip again. Huh. But, you know, maybe if we... We could also just display it slightly differently. Like, if we went here, if we wanted a amber bamboo pickaxe, we could have an amber bamboo pickaxe here with amber pickaxe plus bamboo or something instead of hand item. It could be item furnace picture bamboo or something. Or maybe even just furnace item. Although I guess that doesn't really make sense because you can also smith it. Could rename this to alchemy and have another tab for crafting, variants, smithing, whatever we want to do. Wouldn't have these tabs, so it would make sense to be separate, I'd say. Right, those aren't anchored. So we could do something like... something like this could work. I don't know if we want to reserve these border colors to mean certain things, like the type of item or something later. But this could work. We could have that for like a variant symbol. This is combining items. This is using this on this to get this. We would definitely want some sort of filter just for alchemy and just for blacksmithing though. So it's going to get really complex really fast. I feel like we need to think through how we want to organize this information before we build it, because it's just going to be too confusing otherwise. And I feel like the key to this sort of like crafting focused game where the whole game is crafting and discovering new recipes and items and combinations and everything is also going to have really, you need to have good notes of like what the recipes are and how you get certain things. I mean, one positive thing is the player's going to do alchemy first. Like that's where you start in the game, and they'll probably unlock the anvil pretty quickly, maybe like after doing a single quest from a blacksmith. But they'll unlock the furnace later, so the codex will look very uniform with just alchemy recipes. So maybe by the time we start layering in blacksmithing recipes, the player will be more familiar with the format. Can we include these variant recipes in the existing filters? I bet we can. So we can definitely put them in all. Oops, I redrew it, so they're gone. Craftable, we could put it in craftable if the player has both apple and chisel in their inventory. It's a little funky because they don't necessarily need the base item in their inventory if it's one of the anvil items. But maybe we can handle that as a separate case later when we factor in like the smithing level or something. Tools, yeah, that makes sense. We could have variant recipes resulting in tools included. Materials the same. And consumables, yeah. So really we just need to look at our codex recipe row drawing and allow it to take in a variant recipe as well and just format it a little bit differently if it's a variant recipe. And then we also need to figure out how to like sort our recipes and variant recipes together. But I'll probably just stick the variant recipes on the end for now, to be honest. It's not that important. So let's do that. Codex recipe row. This guy. Probably has load data. Yep. can we also just throw a load recipe data variant recipe? Probably. Okay, let's get it done. So when we take in a variant recipe instead, we will do a lot of the same thing. So crafting slot manager dot load recipe. We'll need to do that as well. Crafting output slot manager. Ooh, actually, we won't want to use a crafting output slot manager because we can't craft it by hand. So there's our first problem. Let's go take a better look. Output item slot. Love this song. So really, we probably shouldn't be using this for variant recipes, because we could write a load recipe that takes a variant recipe and then sets a flag for like whether it was a variant recipe, so we can check that flag on pointer down. Or we could couple it a lot more to crafting and store the workstation from the recipe and say like if the workstation is hand alchemy, then we can do it. Otherwise don't. So maybe what we should do, could do a inventory slot manager here that's disabled. And here we could have a inventory slot manager that's non-crafting inventory slot manager. So if we receive we do load recipe data, we can do crafting slot manager dot game object set active true and non-crafting set active false, versus down here we could say crafting slot manager set active false. Wait, we don't want to set the game object false. We want to disable the script. I forget how to do that. Dot enabled. So this guy, so we probably should signify that in the UI somehow. I'm not sure yet how we want to. Let's set our UI values, item name, item type, output item image. That's all fine. Okay. We'll do our crafting ingredients. They're not gonna quite be the same either, because they're always 1 and 1, I think. Although we probably do eventually want to say like, oh, you need 5 ice cubes and 1 bucket to get a bucket of ice, not just 1 ice cube, I suppose. So maybe this will be fine. So let's say ingredient 1 is the base item data, recipe dot base item name, coolio. This is going to be material So we will do ingredient1.load ingredient data, base item data. We can reuse that. Ingredient2.load ingredient data. Cool, cool. And then we'll also say ingredient2.transform.find frame. Yeah. New color. Red, green, blue, opacity. So we give it a red frame. But we need to set show the item slot. Maybe we get rid of this. Because we also have show item tooltip on hover. We could just set the image manually and then set this and just skip over the whole inventory slot manager to begin with. So let's do that. Let's just make sure that's enabled. That's disabled. Let's remove our inventory slot manager. And we can just say crafting slot manager dot transform dot find output image dot sprite is equal to resulting item dot image, and also crafting slot manager dot get component show item tooltip on hover dot set item. What the heck is our interface there? Oh, do we just set item manually? Yeah, we do. Let's see here. Dot item is equal to resulting item. And then we'll just turn that on. Because we've disabled this slot manager script. That's so janky, but I think it'll work. We'll disable this, but we do need to set the tooltip as a reference. Let's go find our tooltip. HUD prefabs. Item tooltip. So this is disabled by default, only gets turned on when we use a variant recipe. Set the item, we set the image manually for output image. We probably should strip out the item tooltip stuff from this, but I don't know that I want to do that today. Maybe we do that another day. It's the same code, just need to make sure that it all works when I strip it out and branch out correctly. But when we load a variant recipe, we do that. And then lastly, we want to change our workstation icon. To something else. And we're gonna just store that here for now. Alchemy icon and smithing icon. So we've got workstation icon is just alchemy icon when it's a real recipe for alchemy, and smithing icon when it's a variant recipe. Maybe we should call those smithing recipes. We'll see. Okay. So let's set those and all these new things. Workstation icon is here. Alchemy icon is our hand. Though we could use something more descriptive now. See if we've got anything like magic. Nah, it's okay. Smithing, we want our craft icon. 256, 256, that'll work. Okay. And then is that everything? Output item slot, this is off. It might be. I mean, we're not actually drawing the new variant recipes, so redraw recipe list. We also want to say, ooh, passing stuff around a little funky. Yeah, we need to take some time and do some polymorphism on the recipes so we can put both alchemy recipes and blacksmith recipes in the same list. Probably rename recipe to alchemy recipe. A child of recipe. We'll have a list of recipe. Yeah, and then we can sort that list as we would expect. But kind of getting to the end of our stream. I was only going to stream for about 3 hours today, especially since we lost a half hour and started later because my internet wasn't behaving. So I think maybe we'll leave that as a big to-do for either next stream, or I'll do it off camera and do some more exciting stuff next stream. But that's basically what we would need to do. We've got everything rigged up now, so when we draw our codex windows, recipes, we can pass in either a recipe or a variant recipe. But we need to actually build those lists of recipes. And to do that right, instead of trying to jam them into like a list of objects that we cast back to the correct recipe type and so on, what we really need to do is take this recipe. Let me piping for variant recipes in codex window. Not too much changed, but basically what we need to do is take this and say alchemy combination recipe if we want to get real explicit. And then we will have that inherit from just recipe, which I'll throw in here for now, just for syntax issues. And then we also have our variant recipe. I guess this needs to be public. And so this guy probably needs to be blacksmithing recipe, or blacksmithing variant recipe, I guess. We'll make him inherit from recipe as well. And then in our codex window manager, we will have a list of recipe here. But we need to like cast stuff around and make sure that everything works as expected. I might want to make the recipes just an interface on the classes. I'm not sure yet. So that's like high level what we want to do there is grab all the recipes and then also add all of the variant recipes, filter them the same way, sort them the same way, and then redraw this list with the full recipe list here. And then when we pass that recipe through, it is cast back to whether it's a variant recipe or alchemy recipe, so it branches correctly to the right function here to draw the row correctly, and so on. So I think that's a good enough explanation. I'm going to go take a break, have a little snack, and then I'll either do it now or save it for next stream, but it's probably not exciting enough to save, so I'll just do it now or in a bit. But it's been nice having you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We got a lot done today. We built 2 new crafting systems that players can pretty much use infinitely for crafting whatever items they want. They can say, I want to use this material to craft this item. So a great way for them to start with all their starting tools in whatever material they want, which will probably be from like punching trees and then getting some logs, crafting some tools with those logs. But we also built the furnace, so then you can collect a bunch of items, a bunch of materials, and then when you have an item that you really like, you can just kind of burn down all those materials to keep adding more and more to that item. So both of those are pretty cool ways to like interact with the world. Just kind of giving the players new ways to interact with all these item and crafting systems so they can go about the world how they want and learn the routes that they like. There's still a lot more to be done for using those items, both for like obviously equipping armor. Like combat is a long ways away, but if you make a cool sword, like equip that sword so you can use it and take advantage of those really interesting things that you incorporated into your sword. Or if you make armor, you can make it stealthy or play however you want that way. Or like farming or whatever. So lots of stuff there. Hey, Flying Donuts. I'm actually just wrapping up. I was just saying thanks and summarizing what we built today. But I appreciate you jumping in. I can show you around what we've got if you would like. Just a real quick little summary. If you're sticking around. Otherwise, no worries. Oh yeah, sure. All right, cool. I just walked through a bunch of code and added a bunch of comments that probably broke everything. So let me revert all that potentially. Maybe we can just run. How do we want to do this? Let's undo all these. All right, this is fine. Yeah, so we're working on a big ol' crafting RPG that has a bunch of different interconnected systems that are kind of powered by AI under the hood, just for generating like item data, flavor text within the world. We've also got a bunch of, obviously, the NPC stuff, so you talk to NPCs, but we also have quest generation and like problems that they have based on their personality and professions and things like that. But you play as this little apothecary or alchemist who's come to this town. You're new here. There's a bunch of NPCs in town to meet. Each of them have personalities, professions, etc. You can obviously talk to them, but they're going to explain their problems to you. So this guy, every time he strikes an anvil, instead of sparks, he gets butterflies. So a bunch of butterflies in his blacksmithery. So you can click some stuff that's generated for progressing the conversation, or you can just say whatever you want. This is a great way to like learn more about the problems, learn more about like what he think would help or what wouldn't help or what he's tried. The other co-founder of my studio is working on a lot of cool stuff for giving him more of a brain to like query the world and understand what's true and what's not. So there's a lot more that we're going to do here. But basically, if you go around and talk to each NPC, you learn their problems, and your task as a player is to go craft an item that you think would help them. So maybe if we were to make like a net for this guy to catch his butterflies that are flying around, you can craft whatever items you want. We've got a bunch of starting items here just for testing stuff out. But there's also, I guess I can show off, like, if you mix aluminum and, I don't know, an apple. There's no recipe for that in the game. So if you craft that, we're using AI under the hood to say, like, here's your ingredients. What do you get? What are the stats? Like, how do they build off of these ingredients? We also generate images and stuff like that. So you get an aluminum cored apple. From then on, every time you mix those items, you always get this item in the game. So you're kind of taking on the role of this character and learning all these recipes yourself because they're different every time you play. But you can craft some stuff. So now we can head on over to like the anvil, and maybe we want to try and make an aluminum net for this guy to catch his butterflies. So we can put in a material to use, specify what item we want to make. We made a metal catcher net. Again, that is another recipe that was just generated. So from then on, anytime you use this item as a material and make a net, you get that. But you could also make other stuff like a aluminum cored apple axe, probably. A lightweight axe. Okay, so obviously there's all that jazz. You got tools that you can use to interact with all the objects in the world. So everything in the world is interactable. Trees, bushes, the mountains, and so on. But if we take our lightweight axe and go use that on an oak tree, there's no recipe for what do you get when you use a lightweight axe on an oak tree. So again, we're generating that. You're getting oak logs. You'll now always get oak logs when you use that on a tree, but if you were to use like a bucket on a tree, you'll research what that gets, and you'll be able to see that in a second. You'll probably get like, a bucket of sap. So we're building out a lot of UI to help explain like what you get with different things. So taking a look at like this tree, here's all the stuff you have figured out that you can get. There's a bunch of objects and recipes and stuff to explore, but all that's to kind of power. You get the item that you think would help someone. We'll head back to this blacksmith. It comes back with a nice little summary of like your previous conversation with him, so you can jump back in. But he was having problems with butterflies appearing every time he strikes his anvil, so we crafted him a metal catcher's net. I don't know if it'll work or not, but you just drag it on over, give it to him. We don't have animations yet for like them thinking or whatever, but again, we're looking under the hood with some AI stuff saying like, hey, does this item solve this guy's problem? Here's the full conversation history. Here's his job, his personality. Here's the stats of the item and everything. So we gave him our metal catcher net, and it did solve his problem. Oh, it did not solve his problem. So he requires a touch more magic than mesh. So you can go out and maybe you want to craft that net again and maybe give it more of like a magical touch. There's other people in town who have more magical things that maybe you could buy as items and combine with it, or you could get it blessed at this statue here. Or maybe all the NPCs also have items that they buy and sell, so you might be able to buy some stuff there. Basically, we're just building a really cool interconnected system of stuff that lets you manipulate items and interact with the world in different ways. So you can talk to these NPCs, befriend them, figure out their problems, and then you have all the tools necessary to craft what you think would be most helpful for them. Long spiel, but I think it'll be fun. We've got a whole like crafting or a skills system that we're going to use for unlocking different stuff. So like at the anvil, you can unlock new items to craft here based on how much smithing you've done and stuff like that. Bring in whatever material you want and make whatever items you want. But long story short, it's a big old crafting RPG, and we use AI under the hood for a lot of stuff, which makes it... we have a bunch of recipes in the game already for people to explore, but once you kind of progress through all those, there's literally like infinitely more stuff to explore and craft and do. And also, hey, thanks, Cozy. Thanks for coming in. It's a party now. I was wrapping up Flying Donuts. I do stream at this time every week, 1 p.m. PST. I've been going at it for almost 4 hours now. We started a little late today, but if you want to follow along, you are more than welcome to. I'd love to see you back here, but I am going to wrap up the stream. I think I'm sore throat and just been talking for hours, so I appreciate you coming in though. But maybe I'll find someone to raid while we got some people here if we want. Let's see what we got here. We raid JD a lot, actually. So maybe we'll find someone new. Maybe somebody doing Unity. After work, co-work. No, it's interesting. Yeah, we can raid this guy. But no worries. I'll check out again if I see you streaming. Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Feel free to stick around if you want, but no worries. We will head on over and raid this guy. Thanks for coming in. See ya.